Welcome, brothers and sisters, to Mormon Movie Reviews, where LDS movie lovers belong. My name is D. Bays, and today is October 13th, 2022, and this is episode number 38, and we will be reviewing the Saratov Approach in 2013, running time 100 minutes. This review works best if you've seen this film before, though that is not required, and spoiler alert! In 1998, two young missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Propst, played by Maclain Nelson, and Travis Tuttle, played by Corbin Allred, are serving in southeastern Russia. While out in the city of Saratov, the two are approached by a man named Nikolai, played by Nikita Bogolyubov, who asked them to come to his apartment and teach him and a friend about the gospel. When the elders arrived the next day, Nikolai and another man named Sergei, played by Veadov, beat them, tied them up, and kidnapped them. The kidnappers demand a ransom of $300,000. Propst and Tuttle's families are informed of their son's kidnappings. The Mormon elders spend 5 days in brutal captivity. Propst is convinced that Nikolai will have compassion on them and eventually let them go, so he asks him for a small favor, all of which Nikolai grants. Sergei, he's less kind. He grows impatient with the ransom money, which still hasn't been paid. The missionaries write to their families in hopes that it will speed the payment of the ransom, and back in the U.S., news of the kidnapping spreads nationwide. The Propst family even receives an anonymous check for the $300,000, but they decide not to pay it. Propst eventually manages to remove his handcuffs and devises a plan with Tuttle to escape, but the two then remember their purpose as missionaries and put the cuffs back on instead of fighting their way out of captivity. Nikolai then confides in the elders, confessing his guilt for kidnapping them, and he explains that his girlfriend is pregnant. He helps Sergei kidnap rich Christians so that he would have money to provide for his family. The next morning, Sergei announces that their time is up and drives Tuttle and Propst to a snowy field. As Sergei prepares to kill them, the kidnappers suddenly drive away, leaving the elders to run all the way back to Saratov. Their families are informed that they have been freed, and Nikolai and Sergei, they are eventually arrested by Russian officials. Propst and Tuttle speak over the phone to their families and finish their missions elsewhere in Europe. Now, this was an independent film by Propel Pictures, and I found some real contemporary news footage of the kidnapping, which went global in the United States.
20-year-old Andrew Lee Propst from Oregon and 20-year-old Travis Robert Tuttle from Arizona disappeared from the town of Saratov, Russia.
The Mormon Church is asking its members in the Mid-Willamette Valley to pray and fast for Propst and Tuttle's safe return. Senator Gordon Smith fears for the lives of 20-year-old Andy Propst of Lebanon and 20-year-old Travis Tuttle of Gilbert, Arizona.
A demand was given to the Mormon Church. Two of their missionaries would be harmed, if not killed, if ransom of $300,000 was not paid.
Now, here's an actual clipping that appeared in the newspapers where the kidnappers sent this picture of Travis Tuttle tied up with the ransom note to the U.S. Embassy. Now, Corbin Allred, he is one of the most famous Mormon cinematic actors of our generation. He's played in Robin Hood, Teen Angel, The Saratov Approach, Sticks and Stones. He also played Lucifer in the Mormon Temple Endowment film. Now, the producer and the writer of this is Garrett Batty, and he also wrote Out of Liberty and Freetown. He's a BYU graduate and a faithful member of the church, at least at the time of this film. Now, this film opened on limited screens, mostly to the Jello Belt, which is Utah, Idaho, Arizona, intended for an LDS audience. It made $1 million faster than any other LDS movie has done before it. It was really an impressive milestone when it had a nationwide rollout afterwards, and it ends up fifth all time in the Mormon cinematic genre, only behind Meet the Mormons, The Other Side of Heaven, The Work and the Glory, and God's Army. So it has a gross earnings of over $2 million, which is pretty good for an independent film. They definitely made money on this particular film. Andrew Propst and Travis Tuttle consulted with the Saratov Approach, and I found some behind-the-scenes interviews with them where they reflect upon their kidnapping 20 years ago.
From the beginning, I tried to focus on the kidnappers. Those guys had the most physical control, the most mental control, especially as the situations grew more dim.
One of the things that was really bothering me was, some little things that, just little white lies that I might have swept under the rug. And it seemed like those things were coming back to haunt me. And I was really worried that if I do die right now, if this is the end, are those going to be the things that keep me out of the presence of God?
The tomato meter on this is 60%, and there's only been a few film critics who have taken a look at this film, 5 in particular. The audience score is quite high, and the audience is mostly targeted for faithful members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, there's some significant challenges in telling a true story in which everyone knows how things turn out, and I'm really not sure that this film overcame those challenges. The Saratov Approach targets a narrow audience and is part of niche cinema, and its goal, of course, was never to become a blockbuster. Corbin Allred and Maclain Nelson, who are both in their 30s, are a bit old to be playing 19-year-old Mormon missionaries. Maybe casting younger actors could have helped establish authenticity and vulnerability. Some are critical of the supposed preachiness of the movie, but you have to remember that they're telling the story of 2 young men who are kidnapped and serving the church full-time. The missionaries unabashedly wear Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints name tags, so the film doesn't bury the LDS angle, unlike, for instance, The Other Side of Heaven. Now, the filmmakers employ some handheld cinema effects that add to the cinema verite, but also it establishes an atmosphere of unease, kind of like the Blair Witch Project. But there's no reason that you should need that when you're doing establishing shot of a house. Everything is just a little too shaky. Based on a projected budget of around $200,000 to $300,000, this movie is exactly what you would expect. I feel honestly like I could have written this movie without even watching it. I remember very few movies where I have cared less about the protagonists. Corbin Allred, he is fast approaching my doghouse of Mormon actors. Now, while watching the Saratov Approach, I kept hoping that the movie would end early. When I screen a movie for the Mormon Movie Reviews, I always watch it multiple times, sometimes even more than 5 times, but this was a first for me. I watched the Saratov Approach only once, and I'm never going to watch it again. The film wanted to be God's Army meets the Bourne Identity, but it just comes up short. So my recommendation when it comes to watching the Saratov Approach is to just approach a different movie. Now, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at mormonmoviereviews@gmail.com. Thanks so much for joining me to review this film. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and join us next time for another episode of the Mormon Movie Reviews, where LDS movie lovers belong. So long.